is feed forward. And so this comes from the work of Marshall Goldsmith. Marshall Goldsmith has been a coach forever. And I'm going to say forever because I feel like he's been away. Well, he's certainly been around for decades. So he is a master coach in that he is very much in the corporate space in executive coaching, been around a long time. One of the things that I for me, I coach people who receive 360 feedback. You may have heard of it. You may have participated in it. You may have even contributed to somebody's 360 review. And what that is there's a whole bunch of questions that people answer, and then what comes out in the report is what you mark yourself as and the gap, the analysis of the gap between what you mark yourself as and what others mark yourself as. And so it's quite a comprehensive process, particularly as a coach, I'm coaching people through their reports. One thing that one thing I don't love about that process, if I were to be completely frank, is that it's quite time consuming and there's such a long line between feedback and change, feedback and learning and growth. And so feed forward, I'm about to share with you, is a really cool strategy that can really be used anywhere, anytime. Tonight. You can use this tonight. So the way that it works, so I've got two strategies here. I've got feed forward and I've got scale up by one. They're very similar but slightly different. So I'll go through them both and you choose which one works for you. The first one is feed forward. So here's how Marshall Goldsmith encourages us to get feedback. Firstly, he says, describe clearly what your goal is. So you might say, I want to get better at relationships. So you own the action. It's not about as a team, I'm going to own this action. So I do a lot of work with leaders around listening. So I might say, I want to get better at listening in team meetings, right? So these are clear and simple goals. I want to get better at listening in team meetings. And it's up to you what you choose for your goal. And then the next part to that strategy is you ask people whether you know them or not. Do you have two creative suggestions for me on how I might get better at listening? Right? So you've articulated your goal. I really want to get better at listening in team meetings. Do you have two creative suggestions for me to help me get better at that goal? What that does, the insertion of the word creative automatically gives permission for people to not have the right answer, but just an answer. Creative means I don't have to think inside the box. I can think outside the box. I can just offer you two creative suggestions. Two creative suggestions gives permission for it to be wide open, whether it's achievable or not. And then the next part to that is listen carefully and write suggestions down, right? So that's the role, is that you're not debating, you're not adding anything, you're just listening carefully and writing suggestions down. And the key part to this is to say thank you. No excuses, no defensiveness, no judgment, no critique, no stories. Just thank you. And so have a think about, take a macro view on this and think, how might that play out? So what this does when you say thank you, no excuses, no defensiveness, no judgment, no critique, no stories, it helps people helps you create that culture of feedback. A lot of people don't give feedback for fear of repercussions, right? And you will have all experienced this when you give feedback to somebody and they are emotionally devastated. When you give feedback to somebody and then they give you the silent treatment. When you give feedback to somebody and then they get angry. You will have experienced some level of a not great repercussion. So feed forward is a wonderful way to rewire the way that we give and accept feedback. And so remember, we started with using feedback as a gift. It's a koha. Whatever the package, whatever the gift, it's still a koha, and we say thank you. This is the same thing, is if you want to get feedback to help you grow, remember, if people are taking time out to say something that might help you grow and elevate, that's a gift. That's a gift. And it's very rare that you get people who don't want you to learn and grow, whether you are a great leader or not. And so say thank you, no excuses, no defensiveness, no judgment, no critique, no stories, just thank you. And so we do sometimes have to unlearn what feedback means and what we do with it. So don't ask for feedback if you're not going to do anything with it, right? That's the next thing. It's like we often ask for feedback because we have to tick the box and say, oh, we need feedback. But unless you're going to do something with it, whether you're reporting back, whether you're saying thank you, whether you're saying I'll take that into consideration, there's no point asking for it. So our next strategy is scale up by one feedback. This is very similar to the feed forward, but in this particular one, we're looking at how might we, well, firstly, the purpose of it is to promote self-awareness and continuous improvement. That's the goal of feedback, is I just want to get better at what I'm doing, but I want to embrace multiple perspectives to help me reflect and learn and grow, to foster trust and collaboration with the team. If you are pulling feedback, so that's what they talk about in the thanks for the feedback. Keegan and Leahy also, if you are pulling feedback, you automatically gain credibility if you are doing something with the feedback, acknowledging the feedback. Thank you for the feedback. Integrate feedback as a natural part of your leadership practice. So I'm talking about leaders here, but it's relevant for everybody. So some examples, very much like the previous feed forward strategy. What I'm doing here, though, in scale up by one, is that I'm just asking for people to give a rate, right? So, and I choose 1 to 7. People always say to me, why 1 to 7? Well, often most scales in the history of the world are either 1 to 5 or 1 to 10. So when I say 1 to 7, I'm already disrupting your norm, your cognitive flow, because 1 to 7 is random. 1 to 7 is, there's always a 1 to 3, 1 to 5, 1 to 10. 1 to 7 makes you kind of lean in a little bit more because it's unusual. So then if I were to try and get some feedback, I might say to somebody, whether you know them or not, it could be your family tonight. How would you rate my ability to listen? Right? And so I've done this so many times, it's become part of just what I do. And so then, and whatever the kaupapa is, whatever your goal is, right? That's what you do. But the way that this rolls out is, how would you rate my ability to listen? If the person says, oh, I think, on a scale of 1 to 7, if this person says, I think you're a 5, then you say, thank you. What's one thing you think I could do to get to a 6? Right? We're not asking for grandiose, major life-changing behaviors. What's one thing you think I could do to get to a 6? So it's quick, low stakes, fast, right? And much more practical. What's one thing you think I could do to get to a 6? If you have staff or people that come, people that will say to you, and whatever it could be, how would you rate my ability to facilitate a meeting? And they say, oh, you're on a scale of 1 to 7. And they say 7, you say, thank you. What's one thing you think I could do to get to an 8? Right? We just want to scale up by one. And what this looks like in terms of the neuroscience is that we often, when we look at the neuroscience, that small, subtle changes in behavior are much more sustainable than grandiose changes, right? So where your focus goes, where your energy flows, your focus goes. So we're looking at micro behaviors that we could change, that we could ponder, that we could think about. And I'm not saying you have to change everything you get feedback on, but I do think take into consideration what you're receiving as a gift. So somebody comes to you and they say you're a 2. And you say, cool, what's one thing I could do to get to a 3? Right? Other than like that physical reaction, like, well, I'm not a 2. Right? But remember, we're reframing feedback as a gift, whatever package it's delivered in, whatever package it's given, whatever way, which way it's passed on. So scale up by one is literally saying, how would you rate my ABC? Thank you. What's one thing I could do to get to the next level? Bye-bye. So that is rate